over and over again, though, is being human, is the quote unquote humanness, our authenticity going to be what makes you shine in the workplace? Is it going to, bringing it back to her name, is that really what is going to accelerate you as a human? Being able to sit there and work on your soft skills.
Yeah. That's really powerful, that sense of connection. I feel that might be the human superpower.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to connect with another, truly. I see so many people that isolate themselves and cut themselves off from stuff. And that is it's a self-perpetuating sort of experience. It makes it worse. But the people that go out and they're of service to other people, it tends to go the other direction.
On today's episode of Accelerating Humans, we're talking about empathy. Not just as a nice to have in the workplace, but as your superpower in the age of AI. When everything around us is getting more automated, more data-driven, more digital, what makes us human becomes our advantage. So this started with a conversation. A friend of mine, longtime recruiter, now working in a new company. She told me something wild. Her onboarding experience felt human, not efficient, not streamlined, human. I couldn't stop thinking about that because here we are with AI doing more of the heavy lifting, project planning, writing, hiring filters, even making decisions about performance. But at the end of the day, the stuff that sticks, the moment someone pauses, asks how you're doing, listens, makes space for silence. That's empathy. And it's not fluff. It's foundational. We talk a lot about tech on the show, but today we're flipping the lens. What does it mean to be human when the systems around us are getting less human by the day? How do we lead, hire, and build in ways that actually connect? Bert's bringing the systems lens. I'm bringing some HR war stories. And we're both asking the same question. If tech is accelerating everything, the empathy is how we keep up.
Hi, Bert.
Morning, Julianna. How are you?
I'm good. I actually got off a call with one of our mutual friends. She is doing a talk at HR conference, and she wanted my opinion on our topic.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting topic where, as someone who was a recruiter and has a number of years as a background recruiter, she talks about from the HR side how to improve recruiting and talks about her own experience when she got onboarded into her new company. And her new company had done things totally different. But the one aspect that she loved, and she didn't even think about how it was unorthodox the way they were doing things, is that her experience was very human. And what I mean by that is throughout the entire process, everyone she spoke with seemed to want to get to know her. And they wanted to speak to her on a human level and not just push her through an applicant tracking system and get her started on the day that they needed to so that they can worry about new hire metrics and their ROI of having someone come in. And that got me thinking.
Yeah.
Is being human the key to success in the workforce?
I think it certainly in today's world needs to be. I know my wife is a university professor at Vanderbilt, and one of their core classes right now is what they call being human. And this is a brand new thing that they are pushing out there. And they want to talk about what it means to be human, talk about the human experience. And with the way that the tools and the systems work now, that is going to be our differentiator. You were talking about that applicant tracking system. Yeah, I get put in there as an email, which assigns an ID to me, and then I go through a process, and then there's various filters throughout it, and I might get dropped for various reasons. But, you know, there's a significant number of applicants right now that people are very upset because they feel like they're submitting a huge number of applications and they're getting ghosted because that human element isn't there, because they don't follow up, because they don't have the real connection with you.
Right. But I was thinking about it in bigger terms
Yeah.
of everything that we look at technology doing. So a lot of times when we say technology, we are referring to AI because AI is the new shiny toy.
Yeah.
But we've said it over and over again on our podcast that technology has been around for a very long time, just in different iterations.
The steam pump
Over and over.
mill, very transformative. Wheels.
Exactly. Over and over again, though, is being human, is the quote unquote humanness, our authenticity going to be what makes you shine in the workplace? Is it going to, bringing it back to her name, is that really what is going to accelerate you as a human? Being able to sit there and work on your soft skills, work on things like your empathy,
so
be able to be authentic and build connections. Is that what is going to really accelerate you to be a human, is being more human?
Well, if you look at the surveys that I'm sure you've seen ping ponging around in LinkedIn, what are the most important skills to have in 2025? And the soft skills is always number one. And what I'm seeing more and more of is how do I leverage that in this world? You talked about that. Okay, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be human in the workplace? The way that in my time, I was supposed to be the cog in the machine. I have an accounting degree. I'm supposed to do it a certain way. And I was told to keep my head down and do my work. And for a long time, that's kind of what I did. But over the last 15 years or so, I've been more along the lines of, okay, well, I saw how that worked and they just riffed me anyway when they had a 150,000 person company and they let go a certain amount of headcount, or they close a department or something like that. My last approach was instead to make connections with people, go to lunch with people, have people's cell phone numbers, remember people's birthdays, check in on them, be available, be vulnerable a little bit, tell them about my kids, tell them about my wife, tell them about my hobbies. That's scary because there's risk there. And, normally we try to de-risk work. We go in, do our thing and leave. At least a lot of us do. But I don't know if that's the best approach when I'm now competing with robots that can go in and do their thing and leave a hell of a lot more efficiently than I can.
And that's interesting because we'll look at AI and technology now.
Sure.
And let's jump forward in the scale to when we think that AI is going to be what we see in the movies, where they can do everything and they can replicate a person. I believe that there's going to be certain things that AI can do, and maybe they can replicate it, but the person interacting with the AI is not going to want to be that one. Greatest thing that comes to mind is that the movie Up in the Air. And how George Clooney's character is brought in to essentially fire people. And when he's in the room, he has a way of controlling or influencing the emotions in that room. And a way of reframing and a way of picking up small nuances in the person that we only get because we are human. And by that, what I mean is if I'm sitting across from someone, I cannot tell you that they are sad, depressed, in shock, in fear, because I'm pointing out all these things in their body language, in their words, in their face.
Right.
I'm reading it within milliseconds, and I'm processing it that quickly because I am human. And yes, like again, in this scenario, we could say we're at this point where AI can replicate that and can process those micro emotions. But do I want AI? Do I want even a robot who may look like a person and talk like a person and act like a person? Do I want them to be the ones telling me I'm being fired?
Hell no. I mean, and I know people are going to be upset about that because if you've ever been let go from a company for whatever reason, it always is a gut punch. And
Mm-hmm.
I think because we're human, we a lot of times will hang on to a company where we're not happy because of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Because if you do leave a company, even if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you have to replace that income. You have to replace that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go through the whole process of finding a new thing again. And I want to come back to the AI part about it. Um, I think that maybe you could have something reading your face with a sensor. And I know at least one app that will do this with your phone. I'm using a company called Behavidence right now, which is a really cool company that uses how you interact with your phone to determine what your stress, your anxiety, your depression,
Mm-hmm.
your ADHD levels are. Because the way that you pick up and interact with that box can correlate
Mm-hmm.
with some psychological assessments. But the AI might or might not have access to that tooling. The thing I know
Mm-hmm.
that it won't have is the stupid thing wants to immediately answer everything.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And sometimes in just a second, just pause.
I I've been in that situation where not part of my job description, but a CFO has said to me, I need you to speak with this person and see what the emotions are about some bad news. And you go in there, you say hi, and you start, how are you? I heard the news. And there's something very powerful about the silence of waiting and not having the first word, about the silence and waiting for that other person to drive the conversation, which again gives thought to, even if you could teach AI to do that.
I mean, should you?
Again, I just look at things like, what is the relationship between these two?
Yeah.
And I always come back to empathy.
Yeah.
And that's where I do believe that being a human and possessing the empathy, probably above some of the soft skills, is what is going to accelerate a person.
Yeah.
And even in a practical way, Bert, I teach this in workshops, and to other project managers, because I'm also a project manager, of how to build empathy into your projects.
Yeah.
Because I know that you're a business analyst mindset.
Yes.
And BAs and project managers work very close together. And the BAs are really looking at all the nuts and bolts. However, AI can create me a project plan.
Yeah.
AI can do a lot of this technical stuff that as a project manager I was taught to do. The Project Management Institute even has their own AI agent.
Yeah.
that will help you and make sure everything is done correctly. But what I think AI is going to have trouble doing, and I teach, is that you need to be able to empathize and build the relationship using those soft skills and understand what the blockers are to a project,
Right.
not just from a surface level, but getting deeper by, again, building those relationships to then have a successful outcome.
Well, practically, I'm just thinking about this. I've got young kids, and I've got my youngest son's just started kindergarten, and I went
Mhm.
to drop him off on the first day of kindergarten. I had to push back some meetings for that. My I have friends that are working from India that I've worked with for years, and there's times when they say yes, but what they mean is no. And I've got, uh, you know, I've worked with people before that are sick or other things, or they have family members that are sick, and to not realize that that's going to have an impact on this very clinical project plan that I've developed, or this
Mhm.
analytical approach to doing a thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to increase my bug count. It's going to decrease the commitment count. It's going to cause me to have problems with meeting my deadlines if
Mhm.
I don't consider it. And I think a good project manager, someone who's done that for a long time, those things. And it's
Yeah,
smooth and it's effortless because they know their people.
exactly. And you really hit the nail on the head when you said something about being sick. I like to think of technology, whether it be analytics or AI, as the new quote unquote bean
Mhm.
counters. So they used to talk about back in the day, oh, they're making cuts, those bean counters, they're
Yeah.
looking for ways to save money. And so often people are within these circumstances that they might be on FMLA. They might be on a sabbatical.
Hmm.
They might have an agreement with their manager in place that when your technology comes in, and this is right when we talk about also that bias or unbiased in technology, and they say, well, this person is only doing $1 million of sales in year this year versus their counterpart who did 1.3, 1.4 million. This person is a low performer, and you might be able to say, well, this person was on FMLA for 12 weeks. They missed a whole quarter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the sales and the start of a sales cycle to the end of a sales cycle takes 4 to 5 months. So actually, if we work at the amount of time that they did work, the number of months, then we can see that they are really outperforming the other person based on that type of ratio. And those are the nuances again that I also think the empathy comes into play.
I agree. I think that the analyst part of me is going to say, well, I can code for that. And, maybe I can. But they're all edge cases. And I think one of the interesting things about those is, again, that project manager with 15, 20 years of experience has seen a lot of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
they understand how projects work, they understand how people work. That BA has seen a lot of requirements go across their desk. They understand that people don't necessarily know what they want, or they say that they do, and that's not what they actually want, or they say something and it's just a regurgitation of something that they've heard. I think it's getting down to seeing what am I trying to accomplish and who do I have to accomplish it with. It's really important.
Absolutely. And again, from the project standpoint, what I teach is everyone has a role
Mm-hmm.
in the project, and it is getting to where understanding where the emotions are coming from and using those emotions to the best of the project's ability. So what I usually bring people through, it's funny, is I walk them through what's an empathy audit.
Sure.
And in our show notes, we'll actually link the empathy audit so everyone can get access to it and do it on their own. And while I teach it to a lot of project managers, an empathy audit can be done in any scenario. So even if you are a senior leader or a mid-tier leader, you can go through this empathy audit. And what it walks through is, who is the member of this team and what are their actions? Based on their actions, how would you categorize them? What are they, and then what are they saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then after this, going, okay, now what are they feeling? What are these feelings? What are these emotions? And then off of that, you're able to then parallel it to, okay, well, here's an emotion. Here's an emotion like fear. We know fear. We don't really necessarily want fear in a project, but how can we use someone who's fearful in a beneficial way?
Mm.
Can we give them specific tasks that one might ease their fear, but also help our project come along? If we have someone who is angry, how do we use that anger? And why are they angry? Are they angry because they might have said that this was something that needed to be done 2-3 years ago, this change?
Maybe.
Are they angry because their voice isn't being heard? If you're a manager and you have an angry employee, there's a root cause to that anger. So your anger is at surface level. That empathy is you digging in deeper, going, all right, I see I see this person's angry, but they're getting their job done. So they're angry, but they still care about getting their job done. And they're angry, and these are the things that they're saying. They're always making snide remarks when someone else speaks. Mm-hmm. So now we go to the bottom of it. Okay, what are you angry about? Are you angry about being passed up over a promotion? Mm-hmm. Are you angry because you don't think your voice is ever heard? And now you're becoming a better leader because hopefully you're going to be able to help this employee get past that anger and build upon themselves and become a better human.
That's really powerful. I'm thinking back to a specific instance. This is a while ago, but there was someone that she was just really frustrated and angry. And I'm talking to her, and was like, what's going on? It's like, well, I should have gotten this promotion. And then I started asking a couple of questions, and it turns out that there had been a job posting, and they specifically said that she should apply for it, and she didn't. Mm-hmm. And then she was upset that they didn't just pick her. And I don't think that, the anger it isn't necessarily rational, but it still exists. Mm-hmm. And it still needs to be dealt with. And I'm thinking back to that one person, and she did apply for the next thing that came open, and she did get it, and that did help. But I think that it was just, sometimes things don't happen unless you do something. And
yeah,
sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't. You got to be proactive about it. And I think that the differentiators in the future are going to be, how do I connect with the decision makers? How do I let them see me? How do I do so in a way that is real? And thinking about being human in the workplace, how does that make me different from some other tool that they could use? Why should they keep me around? And I have to make the case in a certain way that it's my judgment that's valuable, my expert judgment built over a career. It's my experiences, and it's my vision, my ability to see stuff and to make decisions and act upon them that would be superior to one of these alternative technologies. Or to go, mm-hmm. as you said earlier, the bean counters, because I've been one of those people, and I've been part of that group that has to make the decision of going from 400 something people down to 100. And that's not fun for us either.
Yeah. I think one of the best ways to really explain how empathy is going to become your best tool in navigating this world is the idea of stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And how a truly great comedian can read the room. And being able to time a joke.
The timing, yes.
the timing of a joke, when there is a joke and people are still laughing, and instead of moving on, they hold it, and they hold it that 1 second more, and the second wave of laughter just starts again.
Uh-huh.
And that same joke can be told in a different venue, and then if they're not a great comedian, it's going to fall flat. A great comedian might say, well, this might not be the venue, this crowd really isn't working with my original jokes. And that is how I view empathy in technology. Is you are that comedian who has to read the room,
Sure.
and people are there to experience something that they want, which is laughing until you cry. And when people are interacting with you in the workplace, they want to have an interaction with you that is a truly human interaction, and not just a, did you get this report done? Have you figured this out? Where is this going? Because that is your AI right now. That is your technology.
Mm-hmm.
That is your calendar invite. That is your custom GPT giving you some sort of response back. That is the ping through Slack. That is all of that.
You're right. And it comes back down to, are we just doing things because there's this, I come back to this very often. Does activity equal productivity?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we've gotten into this weird activity kabuki theater, if you would, world where we're having more meetings and we're having more sessions and we're doing more and more stuff. But we lose sight of the value. We lose sight of what's important. And again, this differentiation between people at scale, where I'm dealing with tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands on a nation level, hundreds of millions of people, but every single one of them is a person that is making their way through life. Ups, downs, all of it, full human experience. And it's so important for me to remember that the job that they're doing for me or I'm doing for them is just a part of who they are. It is not who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And we get so focused, so tied up with what we do is equal to who we are.
Yeah. The last thing I want to bring up, just on really embracing the humanness, is that the biggest impact you can have on it as a human is on other humans.
Exactly.
And within that workplace, we call this influence. And human influence is more powerful than any other type of influence there is. And this was actually proven. So back in the 1950s, they had this theory called the hypodermic needle theory. This theory was essentially used in marketing. Marketers thought, you saw an ad, the ad said Coca-Cola, crisp and good, whatever the Coca-Cola phrase was, and everyone should drink it, and everyone was going to go drink it. Not the case. People were bound to choose Coke over Pepsi based on what their friends were drinking, what their family was doing. People are more likely to vote for a person based on what your friend tells you about the candidate versus what the candidate tells you about themselves through a podcast, interview, debate type thing. So understanding, going back to this empathy audit, understanding and being human and really looking at the emotions, because that's what's separating us from technology, is the ability to emote or have those feelings and rationalize this, is the fact that you can also use that to a strategic advantage by having the right people around for influence.
Right.
So if you are a optimistic person, being able to sell that optimism in a job interview. If you are a stoic person, being able to understand that and how to leverage that.
Right.
I am someone who, again, might try to be more optimistic, might try to solve a problem and get to understand and get to know people. So when I'm on a project or I'm being hired or I'm brought in to do a workshop, I'm going to say, well, I want you to put me next to the person who is not least optimistic, because we're going to clash,
Right.
but the person who I might be able to move the needle a little bit and move the needle and move the needle. Or even looking at teams and saying, who is the great driver of change? Is it the CFO in this project? Okay. Who listens to the CFO? Not listens in terms of downline, but actually respects the CFO.
Right.
Now, who do those people influence? Who are they friends with? Who listen to them? So that when we're talking about the empathy of others, you now almost have this web and you have this map of going, okay, this person is really seeming really depressed at work.
Yeah.
Let me try to understand why. And now, who do they listen to? Who do they surround themselves with that I can then use to help influence them?
Yeah. That's really powerful. That sense of connection. I feel that might be the human superpower.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to connect with another, truly. I see so many people that isolate themselves and cut themselves off from stuff. And that is it's a self perpetuating sort of experience. It makes it worse. But the people that go out and they're of service to other people, it tends to go the other direction because it gets them out of self. And here we are talking about being human and like self, but at the same time, I think that when I look at that in an organizational perspective, I like to think of the people I think of them as fountains and drains. So the people that are bringing energy in and those people that are taking it away. And I'm much more likely to want to associate myself with the people that are bringing energy in than the ones that are going to take it away. They're easier for me to spend time with than the ones that just feel like I'm out of energy by the time I'm done talking to them. So
yeah, but like I said, being a great leader, being a great individual contributor, being a great project manager, BA, it would be looking at to say, well, these people who are bringing the energy away, why are they handling themselves like this?
Yeah.
And everything's not going to be a super fairy tale. You're going to have the ones where you're like, this person is just miserable and there's nothing you can do. And it's not like, while empathy is great, it's not going to fix everything. But there is this idea that when you are empathetic and you do get to the root cause, things like loyalty are then built. Things like greater productivity are understood when someone says, I have kids and I need to be out of here at 3:30 to 3:45 every day to drive back and pick them up from daycare. I understand I'm cutting out an hour and 15 early. But if they're able to keep up their productivity and they're loyal to you, then that could be decreasing turnover.
Right.
And that's where, again, being the anti-bean counter is very important.
Yeah.
It's funny, I actually thought of a story that once I was working on a new payroll implementation and the CFO asked me, we have 3 payroll people. With this implementation, I think we're going to be able to go down to 2. We need your recommendation of which one we should fire.
No.
And I'm sitting there going, I don't want to. I was 27, 28 at the time. Like, why are you taking my, and the empathy kicks in.
Right.
The empathy kicks in because we have someone who is end of career, but not ready to retire. We have someone a little younger, but also maybe more prone to grow and learn and understand a new system a little bit better. So I had several weeks to evaluate them. And I thought this was going to be a really tough choice.
Mm-hmm.
But tried to get to know them, tried to understand all of them, tried to really assess things both from a black and white perspective, and then apply the empathy.
Yeah.
And in the end, there was a clear winner because one person was just terrible to work with. And I remember my recommendation at the end of it was, you need to keep this specific employee because although it's taking her a little longer to understand the new system, she is getting everything done, and in time will increase, will be better, has this type of attitude. And I said the other one just doesn't do her job.
Easy.
And so that's just an example of, yeah, you could apply empathy to the situation. And not everything is going to need an empathy audit there.
Right.
And not everything is going to be some heartstring story. Sometimes it is pretty black and white in terms of who needs to be let go. But other times, talking to someone who has been with a company for 35 years and the decision is demote or severance yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you need that empathy.
Yeah, and the computer won't have it.
I know, but it is going to tell me that I probably have ADD once you send me that app for my phone.
Oh, yeah. Look, man, we already had the stuff that tracks your use in the machine. They just took advantage of it, and next thing you know.
Well, Bert, great talk. Didn't mean for it to get into so much a therapy session, but it is life.
Yeah. And be real. And I think that if you lean into that, that's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for your time, sir.
You too. Next time.
Until next time.
From Bert and I, we want to just say thank you for listening to today's episode of Accelerating Human. If you'd like more information or to get our download from today, please visit acceleratinghumans.com. To get in touch with us, it's very easy. My email is Julianna, Julianna, at acceleratinghumans.com. Or for Bert, it's Bert, BERT, at acceleratinghumans.com.